Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are recording. This is Tom and this is Dan, and we are talking about God. This is Chats About God, and here we are today when we're recording this is June 19th, 2020, and as you know, this has been a transition into a unique period in human history. So normally Dan and I are meeting there in his beautiful high rise, but we are now virtually meeting here in Zoom, and we have many messages to share with you, but today a very powerful message. And out of all the conversations we could have and chats we could have about God, Dan, what's the chat we're going to begin with discussing today?
I just want to talk about, I just kind of want to talk about, the world gets all stirred up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we live in this realm and things happen, events happen, things happen, right? And so I think what happens with people is we kind of put our hope in man, right? Okay, something happened. It's like me.
Mm-hmm.
I love my wife, okay? But I don't put my hope in my wife. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're supposed to put our hope and faith in what? God, right? But we as man, what we do is I don't put my hope in my wife, my kids, my parents,
Or yourself, or the person looking back.
Myself,
right.
My teacher, right?
Yep.
The doctor, the pilot, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Put our hope in God. And so what happens to us is we tend to forget that. It's like put our hope in man, and in man, what does man do? Well, man disappoints, right?
Yep. We're going to be let down.
The last thing I want to do is disappoint you or my wife or whatever, but for some reason, in my life, something happens and I just, so we get disappointed by man, which is kind of, in our belief system, why would we expect something different, right?
Right.
Why would we have some other expectation, right? So
here's an analogy that I can share with us. That one of the men that was my student, or I was a student of, and he was a teacher of mine, he said this, why do we have friends that are liars? Why would we call our friend a liar and expect them to not lie? We have friends that are thieves. Why would we be upset with our thief friend that we invited into our house and the thief stole something? I can't believe he stole something. It's a thief, right? Thieves are going to steal. Like, so man is going to disappoint. Like, so the analogy is like a liar is going to lie, a cheater is going to cheat, a thief is going to steal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the great scope of humanity, we as humans, we're terminal. We got a terminal illness. We're human. A lot of people forget that. B, we're going to disappoint. Why? Because we're human. We aren't walking on water. We aren't, we're human and we're flawed. Like, so we have to have faith in, we don't have to, we can choose, we can come to the recognition that we're going to be let down if we have hope and faith in humanity. But when we reach to God and we reach to the God within, that's who and where we can find the hope. And that's where and who we can find that one and only place that won't let you down, that won't disappoint. And then as we're saying this, some like, whoa, Dan and Tom, I've been disappointed by God. Well, that we'll have more conversation on this, and that's more.
We have those expectations about God too, right?
God doesn't think the way we
prayed, and I really meant it, And then I went and I got some other people. I told them to pray for the same thing. We had 400 people praying, and God didn't come through.
God let me down. Yeah,
He let me down. Right?
God doesn't think the way we think.
He disappointed me.
That's like a kid, and for the parents out there, that's like a kid talking to the other kids about praying for, a big room full of candy. My parents, please let me get this big room full of candy. Well, the parents are going to be like, well, that's probably not the best for you. I can see that's what you want, but as the parent, I'm not going to get you that big room of candy.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm not going, Mom, Dad, they're mean. God, I don't know if I like that guy anymore. He didn't give me what I wanted. When obviously this is something that's important.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So anyway, it's what happens with man is, you know, we put our hope in man, and then man lets us down.
Right.
So then, then we get upset. Okay. And so, that's why you and I, we put our hope in God,
And the God within, right? It's not
Yeah.
me, it's look, and here's the other thing. And this in these trying times, I've had this conversation with many of my friends, because look, in the last few months, the whole world has been turned upside down.
Yeah.
My personal world, everybody has been impacted by this worldwide in one way, shape, or form in another. And I think this is good, because nothing that God does, I mean, if you look at the Bible as like, hey, here's the way it unfolds, the lessons come from turmoil. The lessons come from pressure, right? It's not when life is rainbows and unicorns that you learn your lessons. It's when the pressure comes that the real important lessons learned. So I see this as a very amazing path in God's perfect journey. And here we are, a part of this. And we can see certain things like, man, that hurts. That hurts, whether you lost a loved one, right? Because death happens, right? That's a thing. Whether you lost a loved one, or whether a relationship broke up, or whether a job went away, or whether a business went away, that hurts. And man, God, like we talked about the candy wish, like I wish my relationship didn't fall apart. I wish that loved one didn't pass away. I wish my job didn't go away. I wish my business didn't crumble. But God has a larger plan, and God feels it. God feels our tears and knows our tears. He feels the pain. And we just have to go to God and trust in that perfect plan. So a lot of times, what we've talked about many times in these chats about God, what Dan shared with me was as if God was speaking to me, do you trust me? Because, when I'm having this doubt, like, oh, that shouldn't be, man, that pisses me off. That's wrong. That's bad. Well, do you trust me? And if we're as parents and we can have our children who also like, that doesn't seem right. You're unfair. You're unjust. This isn't, I want that. Yes, I know. And I feel that. I love you. And I'm doing it. It may hurt, but this all works. This all works out. You'll see. So it hurts. Life, there's no promise of just because you have that trust and faith in the God within and with God who is all, doesn't mean you're not going to feel hurt. Doesn't mean you're not going to feel pain. Doesn't mean there's going to be no turmoil and chaos. Matter of fact, it's always going to be there. You'll just have it in a different perspective, and you'll see it.
Yeah, I think what happens to us is we kind of go through life trying not to be harmed, right?
Yes.
We try to keep away from suffering and pain and all that, right? And so, but God uses all that suffering, we kind of come to our end with some things, right? We've all been there, right? Who do we see? Well, we see God at the end of that thing.
Yep.
Staring back at us. So, yeah, you kind of see, if you're observing, you kind of see how man sees things and how he reacts to things and all that. It's really just man putting their hope in something other than God.
Yep.
When something happens to us, when we say, we've talked about this before, I can't be going around talking about I believe in God, and then the next thing that pops up and throws me in the ditch, right? I can't be gnashing my teeth and having a fit, right?
Mm.
Right? So what I got to do, I got to trust him in that thing right now that doesn't look good.
Yep.
So that's the believing in God, But it's so interesting, we go around, we communicate with people, and it's this thing that we talk about coming to know God. It's a tough path to get there,
Yeah.
And this idea of us, dying to our self-belief. And when we talk about dying to our self-belief, we're not talking about behavior again, right? Well, I want to I want to go do this, but I'm going to die to myself and go do that. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I'm talking about recognizing that we died with Christ on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And now we live.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't live without understanding the dying. And so basically what happens is he takes over, right?
Yep.
He takes over within us.
Man. As you said that, I've just been reflecting, like in these last couple months of all this turmoil and chaos. Had I not let settle in our conversations prior to that, I'd have had a couple things going. I'd have had to save the world complex. Like it's my duty to save the world because the world's crumbling. I got to put my cape on and go save the daggone world. That's a lot of stress to try to save the world. I now recognize, because of what we've discussed here in Chats About God, that Jesus did that. God already did that. God's not sitting there praying and hoping that Dan and I save the world and you don't have to save the world. So there's a lot of peace that comes with that. And yes, we can witness the tragedies and the things that shouldn't be from our human perspective, but are, and they're perfect because they happen. And we can step back and say, man, God, that hurts, but I know you've got this, right? I trust that this all does exactly what it needs to do. And if you look at it from that, not having to save the world and trusting in God, I have a hopeful perspective of what's happening around, the globe, with the economy, with the social things that are going on. I mean, it's about time for change. And guess what? God felt the same too, because change is in motion. And we're going to witness what that looks like. And a lot of people have hypothesis of what that's going to look like, but I don't have a clue. It's going to unfold exactly how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, but what we know is it's not our world, right?
Yes. Yep.
So here we're all running around out there trying to fix the world, trying to be the savior of the world, trying to change the world, right?
Yep.
Well, it's not our world.
Yep.
And so, like we've said before, the only thing that's taken place is the operating system of this world is moving people around, right? And we're getting all stirred up and we're getting moved around by that operating system, belief system that says, this is wrong, this is right.
Right and wrong, yep.
That ought not to be.
Right.
That shouldn't have happened.
Yep.
Right? That shouldn't have happened. Something's out of order. Something needs to be fixed, right? Yep. So we tend to say, oh, I believe in God. I believe in God, Jesus. And the first time something goes down, that kind of goes out the window, right?
And the interesting thing to see now, with the judgment of right and wrong, and everyone's got their own interpretation of what's good and bad, is seeing people impose how things should be, as if they're at the throne. This is how it should be, and if you're not doing it, you need to go, right? It's either you do it my way or you get the heck out. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. And people assuming that power, assuming that I'm the king of this world and you got to follow my rules or else.
My right's right.
Yeah, my right's right. Your right is wrong. And you either get on the program or we got some problems that you're going to not like.
Hey, you need to get with my right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I respect your life, but only until you believe that I'm right. Right. Yeah. You have all the rights you want as long as you believe what I believe. And that's the interesting part. And we can say that with a smile, because throughout history, that's kind of how Christianity has been splintered. Well, yeah, they're Christian, but they got, they're not quite all there. They're missing this part. They're doing, bless their heart, they're doing good, but they're missing this. So they're not going to be in the good. They're not in the good group. There's only this. We're the group that gets into God's kingdom. Everyone else, they're not getting in there. So it's throughout history we've seen this, but now with the world connected through social media and stuff, you see everybody pushing their right. If you're not wearing a mask, you're killing everybody. If you're wearing a mask, you're a fool. Like it's the same thing with diets and religions and politics. Black and white, right and wrong. You name it.
The operating system of the world, baby.
Right.
I'm walking back from a cup of coffee, right?
Yep.
You know where I am.
Yep.
I'm just walking back. I just got a cup of coffee and just walking home, man. And I'm watching the traffic because I'm crossing the street. I just get through the street, right? And this guy comes up behind me and hits me from behind.
Huh.
And I turn around, he's in army fatigues and he's got a mask on and all this stuff. And so he starts shouting at me.
Huh.
And Tom, I just kind of turned around and I looked at him and I said, hey, buddy, I love you.
Uh-huh.
I love you, buddy. You know, I don't know what's going on with you. And literally he was yelling at me while I'm saying this.
Yeah.
But I said, hey, buddy, I don't know what's going on with you. But, you know, I love you, buddy. You know, and you know what? He just stopped.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you know, the thing is, if we put our hope in God and we have this expectation about humanity and all this stuff and how we look at things
Mm-hmm.
in this right and wrong, good versus evil belief system, right? Well, the natural response is a different response, right?
Yep.
When somebody comes up behind you and hits you from behind.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the guy was there.
Right.
So, but what I'm saying is that, you know, there's only one thing I can do and is love this guy.
Yep. Yep.
You know?
Instead of back and forth of fighting what's right, what's wrong.
Yeah. When emotion, yeah.
Where's that going to go? Like we've chatted where that one guy almost ran me over, skidded through the crosswalk, and then I tapped his car and he got out and was going to beat me up. I said, so are we going to roll? What's going to end up here? We're going to roll around the street? Is that where this is going? Like, look.
People, they get into emotion, right?
Right.
They get all caught up in emotion.
Right.
So anyway, that's why you're thankful that God's in you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a peace that comes when many are running in the street, scared and fearful. Yeah. There's a peace in knowing the God within, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean you don't have the feelings of frustration and anger and worry, but you have them for a brief moment. Then you reflect back to the God within and that conversation of, do you trust me? You know, and then you can reflect back, at least when I reflect back, there were a lot of paths I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And the only light I did see, picture a tunnel with a train. I think a train's coming to finish me off. And all right, it's about time, take me out of here. This is too much. And it wasn't a train to take me out. It was actual light. So you keep on moving forward and you trust. So when you reflect back on your life and you see, well, I haven't messed up that bad because I'm still here. God's not done with me yet. So I'm on this journey. We're on this journey together. And there's going to be chaos. There's going to be disappointments. There's going to be things not going to plan. That's part of the plan. But when you can reflect back and trust in God, there comes a peace. And you just follow that intuition. What's mine to do? And when that tap on the back came, you're confused for a second, but you didn't jump to defensiveness and holding your ground and fight or flight. You're just like, a person is confrontational with you and just like, hey, I love you. What? That fries the brain. They're not supposed to feel love when they're engaging with, when you push something, you're supposed to get pushed back.
The thing is, hey, listen, we don't know where that guy's coming from.
Right.
We don't know.
Yep.
And so anyway, when does God show up? You know what I mean? We get all caught up in our behavior and all caught up in our stuff, right? And so what we want to do is we want to keep God at the forefront,
There always.
We want to be in continual, where we talk about prayer, without ceasing, We want that to be continually going on as we walk around, right?
Yep.
And so
pray without ceasing. Yep. Continually. Yeah. Thank you, God. And this goes, right. God is everywhere. God is always.
It's right.
Yeah.
And so who knows what God implanted in him at that moment? I don't know.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. We can't see the end of the thing that God's doing. We just know that it's all born out of love. So,
And I guarantee your
amen.
response fried his mind, and he didn't know, like, that was just a shock. Like, and God made that happen. That happened exactly as it needed to happen. Right. So who knows what seed that planted in him from just your non-human answer, right? I mean, humans, when they're pushed, they push back. That's, that's the normal thing. When you used, in essence, loving judo, right? So when a push comes, the love deflects the hate and or animosity and gives back love. It's a loving
Well, right.
judo.
Well, aren't you glad we don't have to save the world, Tom?
Whew, thank goodness. And trust me, a couple years ago, I'd have had my cape, my literal mind cape on of it's time for me to save the world, because
Right.
obviously it's not working. The world's
It's
messed
not
up.
working.
I got to fix it. That's a lot of
Oh, well,
stress.
I listen. I don't know what God wants to do with this world. Okay. I just know that He loves me,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always look that way. Sometimes we look at it and we go, God, what in the world are you doing? But that's what that believing in God means.
Yep.
Can you believe in me? Can you trust me in the thing that doesn't look very good for you right now?
Yep.
So anyway, I'm just grateful. We just walk around in gratitude, right?
Yep.
Grateful for what He's done for us. Grateful that we know what we know,
Mhm.
about God, and grateful that I can walk in peace and rest knowing it's not up to me.
Well, let me share a story. And I think if you can turn your volume down a little bit, when I talk, it reverbs back. So here's a story, Dan. So my son and daughter came down from New York to visit me here in Florida. And the day before my daughter flew back, we had this conversation about how our plans many times don't go to plan, but God has a larger plan. And so my daughter, who's 14, was flying back to New York by herself for the first time. So me and my son dropped her off at the airport, got her through security and all that. And she was on her own. And she had to connect from Orlando to Baltimore. And when so she sent me a picture when she was on the plane in Orlando, and me and my son were already back and doing things. And she sent me a text like, "Oh, the plane has some technical problems. They're not letting us take off." And then she sent me an update later saying, "Oh, we're not going to be able to make my connecting flight in Baltimore." And I said, "Well, it's unfolding perfectly." And so, because we had this conversation on our morning walk, and she's like, "Yep, just like our talk this morning." And so instead of her, like, remember, think this is her first time flying alone. We had this talk that morning of how, look, I said, and I told examples. It's like sometimes when you can't find your car keys, like, I know I put my car keys right there. Where are my car keys? And you're in that 5 minutes, God had a plan for you to not find your car keys because of what may have been coming at that particular intersection. We don't know all that, but it all unfolds perfectly. So she's like, yep, it's working perfectly. And she's like, and they already told me that I'll be able to catch a later flight in Baltimore. So she's all, up good with it. So she finally gets out of Orlando, gets to Baltimore, and she missed the first flight, right? The one that she was supposed to connect. Then I get a text from the airline saying that the second flight was canceled. There's no more flights, right? So she's 14 in Baltimore. And now I'm starting to think, and in the same time, I didn't get into save the world fearful mode. I got into, okay, well, fortunately, I have some good friends in Baltimore if push comes to shove. But I said, okay, what are some other options? So, and I had her go talk at 14. She went and talked to the gate agents, and I said, okay, have them come up with a solution to see what we can do to get you back, and let them know you're 14 and you'd rather not be stranded in Baltimore. And I said, so the options are either get you to an alternate airport or fly you back to Florida, right? Somewhere in Florida, and we'll pick you back up. So she calls me back later and said that there was a later flight that wasn't going to where she was heading, but to a different airport. And so they booked it. So, it all worked out. But had we not had this conversation at 14, prior to that, she may have been in tears. She may have been fearful. She may have been worried. But with this knowingness that it all works out, she actually had a great, joyous day of being an adult in the airport by herself all day at 14 years old. and handling it, right? Not having me or her mother handle it for her. She took action and got it all squared away. So this is the peace that comes with chaos when you know that it all works out. It may not be what you thought. It may not be the dreams and prayers you had, but if you reflect on your past, you'll see this happening over and over again. So you can have that same conversation that God has with me, God has with Dan, God had with my daughter. Do you trust me? Just trust. It'll all work out. You know, you don't know what that looks like yet, but I do, and it all works out. And, you know, and that said, I had a plan and I had some friends like, okay, trustworthy, dependable, reliable friends. Like, look, hey, this is kind of out of the blue, but my daughter's stranded in Baltimore. Can she crash at your place for an evening? And that would have worked out perfectly too. But it worked out where she was able to get to a different airport. Her mother was able to pick her up. And it turns into a nice story and a nice adventure. See, this is all part of your story, your adventure, all these twists and turns. They call them plot twists, right? In a movie. How boring would a movie be if you could predict every single step? Well, we're in this movie. God has us in, and you're the leading character in your movie. And God likes throwing plot twists in. He doesn't want to keep you bored. You know, you're going to have some plot twists. So get ready and just know that it all works out.
Well, that's that peace and rest, you know, we talk about, right?
Yep.
You know, you would put your hope and faith in God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's one of the best things that's happened to you and I is we've come to a place where we recognize that we don't have to make it happen.
Thankfully. Man, that was stressful. That stressed me out. That made me lose sleep at night.
Yeah, the creator of the world, you know, he's got it, you know?
Thank goodness.
Last time I checked, I wasn't the creator of the world, you know?
Man.
So, hey, Tom,
Yep.
It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well. Taking a train down to South Florida here in a couple hours. So maybe we'll cross paths on a morning walk.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
I like that. That'd be good.
I got to run to the train, but I'm glad we were able to make this. So Dan and I are doing this remotely now, using this cool tech Zoom. So when we end this one, Dan, just shoot me over that video, and we will get this up for you as a viewer of Chats About God, and we hope you have that peace and rest as well. Because yes, chaos is going to happen. Plans aren't going to go to plan, but God's plan is perfect, and it unfolds perfectly. To include the tragedies, to include the things that we just like, man, that really hurts.
So hey, let's remember to keep our hope in God. Keep our hope where it's supposed to be. There's a lot of things out there that trying to, it's a distraction.
Yep.
It's a distraction, right? So just keep our hope in God. I guess that's the message we're trying to say today.
That's where you won't get let down.
Our hope in something else. Let's keep it in God. So anyway, awesome. God's good, baby.
Good seeing you, man.
All Take care, man.
Talk with you soon.
Love you, buddy.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye for now.
All right. Take care, Tom.
Still recording.
I hit stop.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Let's try it again.
Still recording.